الضيفة الثانية اللي كانت معانا في المؤتمر وعملنا معاها لقاء أيضا عن دور مصر، عن إزاي نحقق وقف إطلاق نار، هي فيليس بينيس، وهي خبيرة في معهد الدراسات بواشنطن. خلينا نتعرف على فيليس بينيس وبعدين نتابع مقابلتها معانا لآخر كلام.
So, fellas, after the ICJ resolution, what are our main obligations to reach an immediate and permanent ceasefire?
The most important thing is to recognize the obligation of the states who are parties to the Genocide Convention, and most important of all, the role of civil society to pressure all of our governments, pressuring the government of Egypt, pressuring the governments of all the Arab countries, pressuring especially the government of the United States, who are enabling this Israeli genocide to continue, providing arms, providing money. That's what has to stop. And it means building a global movement that's going to say no to support for genocide. That's not easy, but that's our main obligation. All of the other things that need to happen will depend on a ceasefire. The fact that the ICJ resolution did not use the word ceasefire does not mean that everything they called for does not require a ceasefire to make it happen. So that has to be our understanding of why this resolution, this ruling by the ICJ, was so incredibly important.
Okay, Egyptian president claimed that he has nothing to do. Israel blockade the Rafah crossing, and he's waiting Israel to facilitate the aids and all these trucks stuck in the Rafah crossing. What do you think?
I think that Egypt has played a very negative role in many places in terms of sealing off the Gaza Strip. It did not play the role that Israel has played, but it has not played a good role. So I think there are obligations both on Egypt as a state, like any other state, has an obligation to prevent genocide, to stop it when it begins to start, to not allow anybody to popularize it in their country. These are all direct obligations of every government, including Egypt's government. When the Egyptian government says there's nothing we can do, they can do more than most because they are right on the border. So what they could do is work with other countries in the global south. One of the things that Mustafa Barghouti mentioned today was the possibility of a convoy, a humanitarian aid convoy. There are trucks waiting on the Egyptian side of the border. That's a huge problem, and that's Israel's obligation to open the border. Until that happens, there can be ways of further isolating Israel in the international community, including its bilateral relations with Egypt. You know, there's a treaty, a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. That's a good thing. There should be peace treaties between all countries. But that doesn't mean that relations don't change, that the relations at the diplomatic level don't change in response to Israeli actions in this case. So there are many opportunities for action by Egypt as well as any other country, and to say that there's really no options is simply not the case.
Regarding, as a journalist, regarding the mainstream media coverage after 112 days, do you think it's still biased, still double standard, or it's returned to its professional?
The mainstream media in the United States has always preferred Israeli narratives to any others, particularly preferred Israeli narratives to Palestinian narratives. There is still a problem in the mainstream media in the United States. There are ways, it's rather subtle now. But if you look at it in the context of history, I've worked on this issue a long time, and if you go back 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, 5 years, you do not see anything close to what we see now. A big full-page article in the New York Times about settler colonialism. That would never have happened before Gaza. This is unbelievably rare and impossible. Is there still a problem? Absolutely. Young activists coming into the Palestine Solidarity movement look at the mainstream press and say, this is pretty bad. But they weren't around 20 years ago to see what bad really looks like. It has changed enormously. We need to push that change further because it's still a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. ده كان رأي فيليس بينيس عن مصر ودور مصر وإزاي نوصل لوقف لإطلاق النار.